I came here with a personal story. My family is from Poland. My grandfather was born in Łódź, and after World War II, he came to Israel, and I grew up there. As an Israeli, I knew a lot about the war, I knew a lot about the Holocaust, and only 3 years ago when I came with my dad to Łódź, we went to see a building that at the time I only knew that was owned by my great-grandfather. When I came there, I realized this is the building where my grandfather grew up in. So only later in my life I kind of understood that I don't know a lot about my personal history. Like, I know a lot about the bigger national history, about the wars, about everything that's connected to it, but not my personal heritage. And later on, when my dad passed away, I realized that I have no one to ask anymore. So coming here was a way to kind of take this personal story and embed it into what I find in the flea markets. And usually what you find in the flea markets are things that were kind of, they by themselves have like a missing history, because I know what they are, I know how to use them, or, you know, there is a reason why you buy them, but you don't know who decided to throw them away and why. And trying to kind of connect these stories together was my initial thought when I came here. I found a lot of objects that I usually find in flea markets. So, like, a lot of images. I was lucky enough to find some slides, and then some kind of small tchotchkes, like figurines and all kind of more decorative items that is something that you usually find. But with it, there's like also a lot of very local stuff, like those pencil cases that are, everyone saw them and were very excited to see them again. And I kind of shuffled everything together and sat in the studio and trying to understand like what connects everything. And there's nothing that connects them other than the fact that I bought them in a flea market in Warsaw. And when I was trying to kind of play around with everything that I found and see what kind of, leads me to something else, I was in the meanwhile writing a lot and trying to take the story that I came with, my personal history that is part of this, part of this country, and connect it to what I found. Memorabilia and neglected memories, decorative figurines, and lost sense of taste and time. Warsaw holds the history I do know, the one embedded in me through education and genes. The flea markets in Warsaw hold a story with a currency. I feel the holes in my story with what others sell. The moment we got into the taxi was the one I understood that I don't understand. Endless questions, a conversation in a conversation. For me, it was only a building, a regular building, a property that was once owned by a rich man that happened to be my father's grandfather. A moment before I got into the taxi, I understood this building is a line connecting many dots. Dots I did not know of, haven't asked about, and still don't know about some. So I was trying to kind of lay out this story, this moment when I realized there's a story I don't know. There's a lot of holes there. There's like a lot of things that I've been missing out. And I looked for different ways to tell the story, because there's one way of telling the story, like we're sitting here and I can tell you the whole story, my grandfather, my father, Łódź, building, all these details. But there's, I think, a more personal part in it, especially when you understand that it's bigger than the details. So when I understand that there's this whole story and there's so many holes in it, this is the part where I'm trying to make something else that will kind of visualize it. So this hole in hole kind of pun was something that I came back to all the time, and was a great title in the end for the book. And the book is structured through kind of 3 parts. The first part is an introduction for kind of understanding, like, what is it? It's like this story. It's super vague. I don't know what's there. I don't know what to look for. Everything is like everywhere and nothing in the same time. And then there's like the mythology of it. So I'm a very organized person and I like to categorize things. So I have this enormous archive and a lot of small details. So I usually kind of reorganize. I sort stuff, and through this it helps me understand. But at one point I realized that this mythology doesn't work with what I'm trying to do. So there's like this very emotional, vague story, and there's me trying to figure out, like, okay, so if I'll put this and this together, this will work out. There's one category, there's another thing. And there I kind of let myself go into the more personal side. Like, there's stories, there's specific things that happen. Like, I went to see this building and this happened, or I sat with my dad somewhere and we started talking about the history of my family and I realized there's things that I don't know. So through the actual story, I try to also bring in this experience of the connection to what I found. All these parts together with the objects are something that I decided to put all together in this booklet. And this booklet is not like a fixed booklet. You can actually take out everything and you can make it like a poster, you can put it apart and you can put it together, and it's part of the story itself. And another thing that I realized, that I find a lot of things that are similar. So there's like 2 photographs that look alike, but they're not really alike. There's like 2 objects that look very similar to one another, but they're not really alike. And there's like my story that sounds like other stories, but it's not really the same. And when you kind of try to compare it, but you can't, it's part of it. So part of the thinking of doing this booklet was like, you can take a poster out, but it's double-sided. And it's double-sided and you can never compare them together. And then I took this kind of thinking into the other objects in the installation. So there's 3 photographs of this lady, and it's the same photograph, but it's different prints. And it's, you know, I can go through the story or the history, which is kind of obvious, you know. You make some copies because you want to give them to friends, or you save some other copies, or it just happened to, you know, there's a lot of stories that I can make up. But the actual fact that you have these 3 photographs all together and you can kind of compare them, but it doesn't give you a whole story, a whole picture of something. That's something that I've been also using. Or the birds there that are like the same, but, you know, but a bit different, and they're kind of, you can try and compare them, but you can't because they're all circled. These all objects are kind of a, you know, it's a whole story because I decided to make this installation, but it's just poking so many holes in the unknown. So I think that the result could have been a lot of things in a way, but for now that's the whole that I'm kind of the whole story that I'm trying to tell through whatever I found.